A big shout out to our knowledge partners, Meraki Advisors, a real estate research and advisory firm in India. Hey guys, welcome to the RealtyLife podcast. We talk all things real estate and lifestyle. I'm Swarnima Bhavadeep, the founder and host of this podcast. Today we have a very special guest on the podcast, Ms. Anjana Sastri. She is the Director of Marketing of Sterling Developers. Sterling Developers is an iconic and very nostalgic Bangalore brand. And stay tuned for the entire conversation to unfold. Please like, share, and subscribe so you get to see more videos of this. Thank you. Hello, Anjana, and welcome to the RealtyLife podcast. For the audiences, I've been wanting to have Anjana on the podcast for many reasons, but some of them, of course, I'll tell you here is one, she's a woman of many talents. She's the secretary of the Creda Women's Wing South Zone. She also writes journalistic pieces for major publishing houses on real estate, which is, you don't see many women do that. Of course, the most important thing is she's the Director of Marketing of Sterling Developers. So Anjana, how did your tryst with real estate start off? Tell us a little bit about the past to the present and what your role is today.
Thank you, Swarnima, for having me here. I think so. My real estate journey was sort of inborn. Sterling Developers is a family business that my dad and uncle started 40 years ago now.
Oh,
so, yes, I was born into a real estate family and grew up hearing about the industry. So it was almost a natural segue to kind of be a part of it. However, I didn't start out here.
Okay.
I actually did my undergrad at Boston University and came back, and then worked at a tech company called Harman for a year and a half.
Okay. Oh.
Then I decided to go and do my MBA at the University of Michigan. And when I came back from there, I knew that I definitely wanted to be in real estate. So I started out with marketing, and that's what I primarily do. I've also started looking into the sales vertical of things and understanding that piece. The idea, of course, is to slowly get an understanding of each vertical and each division. But I know that will take time.
Yeah.
But I will hopefully get there someday.
So usually, they always say you never know enough in the real estate industry. You're always learning new
You
things.
learn something new every hour, not even every day. It's almost every hour. So it's a very dynamic industry by nature, but also in terms of like the learning a person can have. It's definitely keeps you on your toes, and it's a great learning experience.
You said family business, and I want to ask you a question on that. What are there are advantages of being in a family business, but what are the struggles or what are the challenges that come, on a day-to-day basis in a family business?
Sure. I mean, I think being a part of a family business, there is a lot of advantages, especially the fact that you can sort of almost experiment and use that as a method of learning.
Yeah.
Because you have a support system to support you even in the event you fail. So I think that's one of the biggest pluses about it. Of course, there are multiple other positives, but you specifically asked about the struggles or the challenges. So in terms of, I would say more than struggles, I'd call them challenges. I would say that one of them definitely is you have to sort of live up to a certain expectation, even if no one else expects it from you, you expect it from yourself. So I think that's definitely something. It's also the one thing that I think drives me every day or gives me my purpose every morning to go to work, is because I've seen the hard work and effort that's been put in to build what's there today. And I feel like with my own hard work and effort, I can elevate that as well. So that's definitely something that it's a challenge, but it's something interesting, and it's a great challenge, to be honest. I think the other thing is, especially with our generation, trying to balance work and life. Basically, you're working 24/7.
True. And I mean, it's not a job, right?
It's not a job. It's a lifestyle. It's a lifestyle. And you have to make yourself available round the clock, because at the end of it, you have to think of it as it's a part of your family, right?
Yeah.
And you'd be there for your family no matter what. So just like that, you'd be there for the business that is a part of your family.
True.
So I think just being balanced with that, even though you have to be available 24/7, but I think also embracing the fact that you have to be. You're in a position and you sort of have this setup, and it's only fair that you give it your all. So even if it means working extra hours, being available on Sundays, that's part of it. I think that's also the fun of it.
Even the social aspect, it kind of gets tied into business.
Of course.
Because you can't do business unless you're that sort of a person who, networks and has that whole infrastructure.
And I think also the whole aspect of a family business, it also gives you the platform to network and meet people who you may not otherwise meet, right?
True, yeah.
And it's also building on connections that have already been established. So it all kind of ties back together. So I wouldn't say challenge and advantage. I would just say it's a large web of sort of different dynamics that you have to balance. That's about it.
And you also have a sister kind of, running hand in hand with you in this process. So I guess it's nice to have someone older and helping you out as you navigate these waters.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah. What's your role? I mean, I understand Sterling also runs the Canadian International School. What's your role in that?
So my role at the Canadian International School is basically the strategic initiatives piece of it.
Okay.
By that, I mean doing partnerships with organizations outside the school, whether it's to do with universities, internships, sporting activities, social causes. So anything that the school ties up with an organization outside, that's where I sort of help and build that equation.
And again, like you said, you need to network for that too.
Yeah,
because
you need to.
the whole ecosystem that gets tied into education.
Yes.
A lot of people might actually say that real estate is not as tied to education, but I think it is because you're housing children in an environment that kind of, nurtures their learning. So it kind of has to be a part of the larger scheme of things.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I understand that your father started the business and with your uncle, but the next generation, it looks like the two girls at the helm, which is a great thing for us. I think it's the new world order in real estate. We're seeing a lot of companies the next generation are only women or a mix. What are the kind of views have you been getting from it, or what are your challenges that you foresee will come up when the next generation takes over?
So I think we're in a fairly unique position. I have a sister that's 10 years older than me.
Okay.
So, and she spearheads the Canadian International School. So I think there's a big advantage for me because I can lean on her and her experience to help me sort of navigate my path. But yeah, in terms of, it's also sort of great that she has and is very passionate about education, so she focuses on that.
Yeah.
And my focus is real estate. So while it's part of the same family, we have two different focuses. And I guess it's nice for her also to lean on someone from a different generation that can give a perspective.
Yeah, a new one. Yeah.
A new one. So yeah, I think in that sense, we don't really step on each other's toes. I think we've figured out a really good way to work with each other, and it's a lot of fun, to be honest.
What about the parent-child relationship? Do you guys step on each other's toes? I mean, it's bound to happen, but...
So I think the one thing that we had figured out fairly early on was that, when you're working with, say, for example, in my case, my father and my uncle, they have built what it is today. They've had 40 years of experience in this industry. I can only learn from them, right?
They're like a bank of knowledge.
Correct. So the more you ask, the more you learn. And sort of the more you push to learn, you will learn something new about yourself as well.
Yeah.
So it's almost a whole cycle of learning. They learn from me too.
Yeah.
I will put it out there. They definitely learn.
Tech and digital will probably come from the next generation.
Yes, and I also think just getting, so I guess the new age buyer is also much younger than what they were used to, right? So I think just getting a perspective from someone that's maybe in and around a similar age also kind of helps when they think through things. So we learn from each other.
Yeah.
I won't say we step on each other's toes because we're very respectful of the work that each other does, each one does. And the idea at the end of it is to grow from strength to strength, right? So we work together. I wouldn't say that we step on each other's toes at all.
And it's nice because it's an organization that's been there for many decades. It's nice to see that update thing happening as and when the next generation takes over. So, I mean, I don't know if it'll ever be a full takeover. I think with real estate, the dads always they're like, okay, we need to make sure everything is running.
And I think, to be fair to them, if they take a complete back seat, we may not be able to maneuver it as well as they've been able to. But I think the whole idea is to try and be at least 10% of what they are.
Because they built it like from
so
scratch,
they've
right?
obviously
Yeah.
learned and gone through very different times than we have. So the learning has also been very different for them. But yeah, I think for me, it's every day I'm trying to learn something new and I'm trying to figure out how I can maybe do it better or change the way we do it.
Yeah.
There are a lot of things you can't change, and that's fine. You have to accept it.
The industry is also age old, right? Like
Yeah.
it's sometimes you can't say it's archaic, but like there's something that you really cannot change because that's how it works.
That's how
and
it
works
works.
well.
And you have to honestly at some point just accept some of these things and
Yeah.
look at other aspects that you can have an impact on.
Lovely. So I'm going to touch a little bit on the marketing bit. What are the new? How have you transitioned the company from one of the traditional marketing strategies to a new modern digital one? How has that transition been?
So I think the transition definitely happened after I came in,
Okay.
Which was about 4.5 years ago. I think it was a very interesting one. What actually happened also almost simultaneously was COVID happened, right?
Yeah.
So that sort of pushed every company across industries to think of something out of the box and do something different. So I would say that's when we sort of embarked on the journey of how do we digitize the entire experience, not just the marketing aspect of it, but even like the sales and interaction aspect of it. So we looked at a lot of AI, a lot of 3D and 4D modeling, and tried to sort of build that into things like your walkthroughs or your customer experiences, so that it would allow customers that may not geographically be here, but customers from anywhere, essentially, to experience the product that you have to offer and sort of make a decision on purchase. So I think that's one of the biggest things that we did at that point. I think also moving a lot of the sales process online to sort of aid and help, I guess, people with, again, limited access physically to places. And I think also, I mean, across the industry, what happened was, since everyone was doing this, the customer themselves became more informed because they could now explore options online. It wasn't limited to, I'm in a certain location, I have 3 options.
I mean, there are a lot of people also looking to invest, especially in real estate in other states and countries too. So I think this kind of opens up more doors for everyone too.
For sure. And I think, it gives them a wider view of what's happening.
But was there flack in the company because the transition is big, right? And I think during COVID, even our generation found that whole transition quite hard. So
I wouldn't say there was flack, but I mean, see, in any organization that's been around for a while, there will be leaders that have also been, a part of the organization for a while. So more than flack, I think it's just
a new habit.
A new habit of getting them to see things a different way.
Okay.
And trying to say that this is something new, let's try it. We don't know if it'll work, but let's try it. There's no harm in trying it. And that also goes back to the piece of being a part of a family business that allows you the flexibility to experiment and learn. So I don't think it was flack. I think it was just helping them see it a different way.
Yeah. I mean, that was COVID was the extra push.
Yeah, COVID was definitely the extra push for a lot of things though.
Yeah.
So
in terms of branding, I mean, Sterling has been there for a few decades now. How have you kind of updated the brand? Because I know now in the real estate industry, people have started to realize the importance of branding the company and the values that they stand for. How has that kind of changed?
Sure. So I think branding and having a brand that resonates with people is very, very important, because at the end of it, that's what they take back home, right? It's like anything that you see today, if you see an ad on the road or you see an ad in a newspaper, you remember brands by their logos. You may not necessarily remember them by their names.
True. Yeah.
So there's a lot to do with the whole visualization of the brand and the identity that you create for the brand. So at Sterling, what we've done, so I don't know if a lot of people know this, but our logo was very different.
I know. I did the research aside.
Our logo was very, very different, a couple of years ago. And that was a very, I would say, it was a crisp logo.
Okay.
And when you look at what it is today, it's very different. So if you actually focus closely, it's effectively showing you buildings in the shape of a heart. So communicating that we're builders with a heart. So I think it's a lot to do with the message that you're putting across. And at the end of the day, it has to be a brand that people find approachable and comfortable. At the end of it, they are investing a lot of their money with you and trusting you with the process and the product that you will deliver. So your brand has to not only resonate with them, has to have a great recall with them, but also has to give them the feeling of trust and comfort.
Because you're selling someone, someone's buying a home from you.
Right.
Or,
it's a very personal
space they're putting in money. So
it's a very personal purchase, right? Especially with residential. So you have to build that equation with the customer.
If you can give us an example of, say, a unique campaign or something that you've run to kind of reiterate that trust that comes with a company like Sterling?
Sure. So I think we had launched a project called Sterling Villa Grande, which was one of our first villa projects. And the entire campaign that we started off with actually had nothing to do with the home we were selling. It was all to do with the lifestyle that we were promising our clients. So whether it was there were ads with, say, just a basketball or an ad with just a stiletto. And that's it. That's all the ad had. But what we were trying to communicate was what we're giving you other than just a home, right? And at the end of it, when someone looks at that, yes, they're buying a home, but they're also aspiring to have a certain lifestyle. And you're promising more than just that. So that's sort of where you kind of build not only their trust, but their interest as well. And also the fact that you're not hard selling or saying X number of square feet, this is the price, purchase the unit now, When you have a softer approach, people are more willing to listen or willing to, accept the information that you have to give them, but be also open to have a conversation with you. And you actually learn far more from the conversations that you have with customers than you do from anything else. So it's about opening that communication. And a customer may buy a home from you, may not buy a home from you, may rent a commercial space from you, may not rent it from you, but having the conversation with them will teach you something that you can use later in the future.
It's like the learning that you take back.
Yeah, it's a learning that you take back.
I think if you put up a hoarding with just a stiletto, I would stop to kind of see, at least what that is about.
So it's also how do you sort of capture someone's interest? I mean, the advertising world in general is very, very cluttered. Real estate also, unfortunately, is very cluttered.
But usually real estate, most of their marketing campaigns are quite in the face. It's very, you're getting this much for this much money with this amenities is what. It's essential you have that because
that's what you're selling.
That's information. But if it's a campaign like that, you would stop at least and say, hey, I want to see what this property has. That's lovely. In terms of is your sister also part of the real estate business?
Yeah, so she is. We look at very different things though. She looks more on the business development front of it, and I'm doing the marketing and sales front of it. So even in that, we have very different roles. So I think it helps that we have our own verticals to focus on, and we're each other's strengths. So we learn from each other, and that's how we both grow. So I think it's
lovely to hear two sisters work like this. Otherwise, because usually two sisters in and around the same age would usually fight. But I think a 10-year age gap is good for
the
that.
age gap is the trick.
We talked about the organization building a brand, but what about a personal brand? How important is it to brand yourself as a person in the ecosystem and in the organization?
I think, a personal brand for anyone actually, whether they're part of this industry or any profession actually, is very, very important. You're representing yourself to begin with. Sometimes you're representing an organization. But it's how you portray yourself out there that sort of builds or opens doors for you, right? So I think it's something that everyone definitely should focus on. For a lot of people it comes naturally, for a lot of people it doesn't, and that's fine. But I think just finding that one thing that makes you and sort of
and to communicate that to
Yeah,
people,
and I think
yeah.
also letting people know that this is who you are and you're very comfortable in being who you are.
Yeah.
That's sort of very, very important. And with this industry, it is obviously important because you're representing yourself, you're representing an organization, and you're meeting people from different walks of life.
Yeah.
Whether it's people you're selling to, whether it's organizations that are working with you, or people you meet outside of this. You have to develop an equation with them, and being able to not just brand yourself, but brand yourself and the organization together, and be approachable to anyone, really.
You are one of the most approachable people, believe me. I was like, when I entered the industry, 7-8 months ago, I think in one of the conferences, I'm like, this is the only person that I can say hi, and there'll be a quick, approachable response to it.
So I think that's half the battle won. If you're approachable, that's honestly half the battle won. But yeah, I think just see, at the end of it, you will also approach people in life, right?
Yeah.
So making yourself approachable makes it a lot easier.
Yeah. Lovely. In terms of we spoke about branding. You're also the secretary of the CREDIV's Women's Wing South Zone. How is that kind of tied into your business? Has it helped you? How has it helped you?
So CREDIV as an organization is also again very close to my heart because lesser known fact, but my father was actually one of the founding members of CREDIV across India. So I've heard this word for years now.
Yeah, you've grown up.
I've grown up hearing this word as well. But I guess over the past 4.5, 5 years, I have been, of course, very actively involved. And I think it gives me a great platform to meet new people.
Okay.
There's a lot of learning that we do together. So there are a lot of things that, I may not know, but I have a group of people or a forum to ask those questions in. It's also almost like a support system because everyone is at different phases or different stages, but we're all here to support and help each other. So I think in that sense, it's a great organization to be a part of and a great group of people. With respect to learning as well, there's a really, really strong focus on, bringing together master classes or talks or study tours and pieces like that enhance your knowledge, right? And in doing so, I think it's a great way to learn from others. See, you will learn the most from your colleagues, whether it's within your organization or within your industry. And I think just going out there and saying, hey, I don't know how to do this, can you help me?
True.
Is the easiest way to go about it.
And with the youth wing, you kind of relate to people in the same generation. So I think there's a lot more that happens in terms of sharing knowledge there too.
For sure. And I think even, say, for example, the women's wing now is very, very active with the whole educational piece. You would know because you are the secretary for Karnataka. So I think it's a great way. It's also a great way. I think I was telling you this earlier when I started sort of getting involved with CREDIV. I remember numerous occasions on which I was the only girl in the room.
I can't imagine. Thank you for being here. Because 7 months back, if you had told me, hey, you have to enter a room with 40 men who only want to talk about business and there are no women to engage with other activities, I would have been like, no, I don't want to do this.
I guess that is also a learning. It's also an indication of the fact that the industry is progressing.
Yeah.
And it's great to see. It's fun to be a part of it and it's fun to get everyone on board and sort of push each other to learn more from one another.
If there are two initiatives that you want to kind of pursue with your time and leadership through CREDIV, what are those two things that it could already have been done and it could be something that's in the works or that you want to pursue?
So I think one of them is definitely, and we're sort of working on this, is a mentorship program. So we hope to have a lot of senior leaders on board and have just our members be able to approach them or have one-on-one sessions with them.
Okay.
It could be about something you want to learn from them or an issue you're having which you think they can help you solve. So that's something that I'm really looking forward to because it's very interesting to just have like a 1-hour session with a leader who's done so much, and you get to learn from them.
And we have those panel discussions in those events, and I know people look forward to asking their questions because you're hearing really from the best.
Correct. So that's definitely one. I think the other one that we haven't sort of gotten around to doing, but I definitely want to do, is build a program around just the whole engineering aspect of real estate. So
it's the hardest one,
It's also something that I have maybe very little knowledge on. So I definitely want to build it, and I think that's something that I would want to do.
I mean, that's interesting because you wouldn't see a lot of women say, I want to know the actual construction bit.
But the thing is, at the end, you have to know everything about everything, right? And unless you have a holistic perspective of a business, you can never successfully elevate the business to the next level. So, while all of us are going out there and learning, I feel like there's always a little bit extra that we can do. And that's, I would say,
it's also about, I think, breaking stereotypes, right? At some point, you're like, hey, I could go on a site visit and know what I'm actually doing.
I think it's definitely so. I mean, I will say that when I started off, I had zero to no idea as to what I was doing. And that is, of course, sort of built its way up to now I have a decent idea of what's happening, right? But I think there's a lot to learn over there. And I think having a program like that is something that I would...
And especially for the women's wing, if there was like a new approach, more concentrated on actually learning the basics of it, I think that would be great. So we look forward to that. Like you have a year and a half.
So now I have a new job to do. Okay.
No, you already do so much because you're probably one of the ones who's always on it, like 5 groups and all the messages going out together. Is organization or being organized one of your greater skills?
It is. It is.
I'm so glad you said that. She's admitted it. So, I mean, we've been throwing a lot of light on the number of now women in real estate. What are the skills that you think we bring to the table that kind of shaping the future of this industry?
So I think, there's a whole different perspective that we bring. There's a much softer approach or a more emotional approach that we also bring in, which is interesting to see because we also see things through the lens of a customer or a stakeholder. So that's definitely very different from maybe the traditional outlook, if you had to say. I think also there's a very heavy focus on design and functionality that women bring in. And it's interesting to see now with, say, newer developments that are very, very design-centric. It's very interesting to see the way people are elevating a home and making it a space that is multifunctional and can be used by every family member.
True, I mean, I think with women being at the helm of it also brings a new perspective to how communities are formed also, because now I see that even a villa development project has all the women coming together to see how the actual community would work and function. I think that's a great space for a woman to be in also.
For sure.
In terms of, you've written a lot of articles for different publishing houses. I read through all of them. Like the good girl.
I'm glad you did. At least someone read through them.
So just touching on that, what is the kind of impact and role of tech in real estate? And you can, of course, give us examples of what Sterling is doing with it.
So I think tech is a very, very important part of real estate now. It began with the whole home automation wave and followed by the whole home security and enhancing that perspective of it. But I think now it's also gone deeper into even, say, for example, the management of a community, which is tech-enabled or tech-forward. It's also gone down into, common spaces being tech-enabled to, say, even make them into co-working spaces. So I think there's a lot that tech has to do now with the whole development of a community, whether it's a commercial community that you're developing or a residential community. In terms of a developer, I think we spoke about this earlier as well. There's a lot that has helped change or enhance the way we market and sell our products. So I think it's a very close equation that it now has, and it's deeply embedded in everything that we do, whether it's you can go from the marketing and sales of a product to the cost management that you're doing to drawing up a project schedule. All of it is effectively tech enabled, right? And that also helps the entire team come together and be on board and sort of be in sync with each other.
You were talking about how women bring a new perspective to, how people approach and buy houses. I know you've written on this, but tell us a little bit about how millennials would approach buying a house.
So I think what's happened in the recent past is that the average age of the home buyer has come down significantly.
Especially after COVID, I think.
Especially after COVID, I think people that were maybe thinking about, say, buying their first home in 5 to 7 years brought that timeline down to almost immediately or within 2 years. So the profile of the customer is a lot younger. And in saying so, the younger generation does come with its own thoughts and its own process. So I think the millennials are, of course, looking for homes that have a lot of amenities, but a lot of community building space, right? So it's not just how many amenities you can provide them, but it's also the caliber of the amenities that you're providing them. It's also open spaces and green spaces you're giving them. It's the flexibility of the space you're giving them even within their home. So, even designing spaces that may not be designated for a specific purpose, but are more multifunctional in nature is definitely something they're looking for. Most of them are looking for a community.
That's a lot of nuclear families now, so it becomes an essential criteria.
It's also a lot to do with their future focus on, say, growing their family and things like that. So I think that's a very, very important one. I think what millennials are also looking for is an easy and a transparent purchase process, right? So going through that entire thing in almost a seamless fashion is something that they definitely appreciate. And of course, they are more on top of things than ever before, right? So as a developer, just keeping them well informed, communicating with them is very, very important.
And the customer profile has changed also. They are far more well researched now, and they know they have options that they can buy from. So I think going that extra mile is everything now.
You have to. I think it's almost an essential part of what we do now, because like you said, the internet gives them all the information they want. They can research and probably tell you more about your own project than you know, which happens very often. But it's also about, while they have the power to get all this research and information, as a developer, you have the power of communicating with them. And sometimes I think that over communicating is far better than under communicating, and that's what the millennials appreciate.
I mean, access to information is there, but to hear it and see it firsthand is a different thing. In terms of the organization, what's next for Sterling?
So I think there are a couple of things, at least from sort of what we've discussed and what we're passionate about. There's definitely looking at new geographies. We haven't sort of zeroed in on when and where, but that's definitely something we want to do. We haven't done that in the past. We've primarily been Bangalore based. And of course, I think different verticals. We've been a pure residential organization, and I think exploring other verticals would also be of great interest.
Lovely. And you said Bangalore market. Where do you kind of see it heading?
So the Bangalore market currently is doing really, really well.
There's place for everyone, I think, now.
There's place for everyone. All different types of developments are doing well. So the market overall is looking very positive. And I think it will continue to look positive for the next couple of months. And I think now is sort of the time for residential real estate to really shine. True. And a lot of developers are sort of taking the opportunity, and there are some great new launches that have come about. So I think it's headed in the right direction for sure. And there's only more and more room to grow, because as a city, we're known to keep expanding, and that's exactly what's happening.
Probably reach another city. That
may also happen.
Vertically and horizontally. It's great. Now let's shift a little bit focus on what you do in terms of hobbies and
So I'm a massive sports buff.
Okay.
I'm a huge cricket fan. Followed
There's
very
going to be so many people are going to be happy to hear this.
followed very closely by Formula One. So in terms of watching and following sports, those two are on top of my list. I also enjoy boxing and playing badminton.
Okay.
So that's kind of what I do in terms of that. But I also really enjoy traveling. And
That's lovely.
I guess
Yeah.
everyone enjoys it, but yeah.
I think even our generation does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think just sort of new experiences is what I thrive on. So that's something that I always look forward to, and I always look forward to finding something new to do.
Yeah. Personally, if there's some changes that you want to kind of see in the industry, what would that be?
Wow, that's a very, very tough question. I think I wouldn't say changes. I think the industry honestly has done a very good job of adopting or sort of welcoming the new wave of younger people, more women. So I think it's been great in terms of welcoming this new fold.
True.
And it's also giving us an opportunity to learn, prove ourselves, do new things. And I think that's sort of here to stay. So far it's been great. Yes, of course, if you look at the whole policy making side of it,
Yeah.
I mean, in any industry, there is always room for improvement.
Definitely. Yeah.
But yeah, I think I would say that the industry has evolved in a very, very positive manner and has also embraced newer developers, newer projects, newer concepts. So
Technology has now become, like you said, a huge part of it.
yeah,
I think 15 years back, we wouldn't have seen that sort of.
I also
involvement.
don't think 15 years ago we would have thought of the industry to have so many different options,
Yeah.
which it does today.
True. Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's definitely a difficult industry to be in, but yeah, it is becoming more and more open.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way.
What's next for Anjana?
What's
Minus
next?
the organization.
Oh my God.
Minus, I think it's just for Anjana in terms of your career. What do you think is?
What's next for me? I think I would be really, really thrilled to take Sterling to another geography. I think that's something that's been very, very high up on my list. And I think it'll be a new opportunity. It'll be challenging, but I'm sure it'll have like a lot of learning. So I think from that perspective, that in terms of me and myself, I would hope to become a little bit more adventurous, which I'm not.
Okay.
So maybe that's something I should start doing or working on.
Lovely. That brings us to the end of the podcast. I know I'm going to ask everyone this question, but if you can tell us one or two books that are your favorite books.
So anyone that's watching this will know that I don't really read that much. So they will laugh if I give you a suggestion.
Books, music.
But
yeah.
no, but I will anyway.
Yeah.
I think the last book that I read that I really enjoyed was a book by Indra Nui called My Life in Full.
Okay.
And it basically spoke about her journey as a professional as well as a mother, wife, and daughter, and just how the whole dynamic of everything around her changed to sort of adapt and support who she is today.
Yeah.
And it was really nice to read about the fact that she struggled through a lot of things, but of course she came out victorious.
And
So
she plays many, different roles and hats, right? Because she's a woman and has to do and play all those roles. So
and she does it really well.
Yeah.
So
that's the key part.
yeah, that's the key part.
Yeah. Lovely. But thank you for being on the podcast. You're probably one of my favorite guests and easier ones to talk to. So I'm biased. I'm a little biased like that.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.